welcome to Ttrpg's Faire, where we are raising funds for Glisten. Glisten works to ensure that LGBTQ students are able to learn and grow in a school environment free from bullying and harassment. We are celebrating Nikki's birthday by supporting this organization because making schools safe for LGBTQ youth saves lives. You can check the chat for information regarding donation prizes and incentives, and we hope that you've enjoyed all the Faire has had to offer so far. Today's panel is GMing, Embracing Inclusion, or Else. Our panelists will be discussing how they set expectations and what tools they use to make sure everyone at the table is having a good time, especially when their characters are not. Before we introduce ourselves, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the colonial history of North America and how North America has and continues to take from Indigenous people. The effects of colonization are still felt to this day, and I wanted to acknowledge that I'm recording this episode on the stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Welcome, panelists! As we do a round of introductions, I invite you all, if you feel comfortable doing so, to acknowledge the lands that you're on as well. So I'm going to be today's panel moderator. I'm Charlene Bear. My pronouns are she, they. And as I mentioned, I'm coming to you from the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'm the DM of Tabletop Titties, which is a weekly queer and feminist TTRPG show run entirely by people of marginalized genders. And I am thrilled to be here today to discuss the badassery that is embracing inclusion and safety in role-playing games. And I will pass it off to D'Angelo.
Hey everyone, my name is D'Angelo Murillo. You can find me on all social medias at @_D'Angelo. I'm a writer, a game designer, and an event organizer, trying to do whatever I can to help our community be more inclusive and, all that sort of stuff. For me, my ancestry and heritage comes from the Yaqui tribe that's actually here in Tucson, Arizona, because I live in Phoenix, Arizona. And they've actually been established for a long time, never conquered, throughout the years, and was in Sonora, Mexico, and then it migrated over to Tucson, Arizona, even before Tucson or Arizona was a thing. So it's pretty cool. This is my homeland, which is wild. So yeah.
Awesome. Miguel.
Oh, hey, that's me. Hi, everybody. I'm Miguel, your TTRPG bestie. I'm a streamer, a dreamer, a writer, and editor. I'm getting ahead of myself. I just get so excited. My pronouns are he, they, and I am coming to you today from the territories of the Kickapoo, the Kanza, and the Osage people. And then I'm all those things I just said. I'm just here to have a great conversation about a great topic. So I'm going to pass it over to Riley.
Hi, I'm Riley Gritch on Twitter and Twitch. One time I was born. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm currently coming to you from Coast Salish lands in the Pacific Northwest, specifically the Muckleshoot, I believe. Yeah. I'm going to pass it on to Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina. I use any pronouns. I'm coming to you from the lands and territories of the Chinook people, the Cowlitz people, and the Clackamas people over in the Pacific Northwest as well. I am a writer, I'm a GM, I'm a role player, and you can find me all over. And I'll pass it to more Shoddy.
Who is muted and doesn't note it.
I hit the click button on it, but I really should pay attention there. Hi, I am Roberto Chavez, Latino in the TTRPG space, commonly known as Morshadi. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm coming to you from the territory of the Yakima Nation and its peoples. You can find me on Twitter at more_Shoddy, and for everything else at moreshoddyplays.games. And I'll pass it back to Shar.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules. You're all amazing people, so I know they are jam-packed. But we are starting off by talking about one of the most important safety tools out there, which is Session Zero. I am very happy that we're in a room filled with GMs for this. So how do you prep for Session Zero? And I don't have an order here, so anyone who feels the urge can jump on in.
I'd love to start. First off, I start freaking out, going, "Holy crap! Who am I playing with?" And then it's gathering all the tools. First and foremost, the basic tools of my Session Zeros is always a lines and veils document, whether it's a poll, whether it's a anonymous document, even as simple as just a Google character sheet that everyone fills out. I have a very standard one that has all the basics things that people might have some trauma with or might not want to see in a game. And first things first, I put my things that I don't want to see. Because to be perfectly honest, I'm helping tell the story as well. And so my anything that would trigger me or what I don't want to see should also be included.
Yeah, I think same thing for me. I started like GMing in 2008, and when I got into like with 4th edition for Dungeons and Dragons and all that kind of stuff. And back in the day, there were no safety tools. There were no discussions about any of that stuff. It was kind of like you came to the table as like a quote unquote man, where like nothing's supposed to phase you and everything. So after years and years of playing, you know, obviously there were various topics that would come up that would be very uncomfortable and be like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. But like, I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to look weak, you know, in front of my party or whatever. But after becoming a professional dungeon master, specifically, I work with Wounded Warrior Project to help veterans process their trauma that they experienced during their service through tabletop gaming and all that kind of stuff. And these are like hardcore combat veterans that have seen, you know, all sorts of things. And I have to tell them like, hey guys, if there's anything you don't want to experience during this, let me know. And like, you know, boundaries, X, Y, and Z. And they're like, whatever, kid. And then sure enough, during certain sessions, things will get like hot and heavy. And then they go like, I need a break, you know, I just need to like, you know, they have real responses. So it's like, all right, I don't ever want anyone to feel that way. Like, you know, you're here to have fun. I don't want you to push beyond your boundaries. So please take it seriously and all that kind of stuff. And I have to use those sort of examples to remind everyone that like, hey, even though you think you're like, you know, super macho and like all that kind of stuff, you're still a human and you have certain things like everyone that will trigger some sort of response that usually is very uncomfortable. So, you know, help me help you by avoiding those things. And thankfully, through those examples, it encourages people to be like, all right, well, you know, I do have a thing with drowning, so I'll just mention that just in case. And like, you know, it only helps to enhance the experience overall. So that's where I come from with it and everything. Yeah.
I want to jump in and say something I like to do. Oh, sorry, Miguel, were you going to talk?
No, you go for it.
Okay. Something I like to do is give the players an idea, even before we create characters, of the kind of vibes that I'm going for the story. Because if you are playing something that is a big, expansive world that has a lot of things going on, you can tell lots of kinds of different stories, which is amazing and great. But sometimes you just want to zero in on a few aspects. And that just gets everybody on the same page. So absolutely yes to lines and veils, talking about other safety tools we use at the table, giving people an opportunity to bring maybe ones that I'm not aware of or haven't thought of using that they think are like amazing and they've used at other tables. I want to hear those things. And I think that starts to kind of get at that collaborative conversation style that I really like to have when I sit down at a table with people to play.
I was going to say basically a combination of everyone else's responses. I like to prep not just myself, but my players with some sort of safety form or consent form. I really like, there's a really good digital one out there that's a Google form, so you can keep it anonymous. And I think the most important part, though, if I guess to not just ditto everyone else, is the follow through, right? Making sure. I've had situations where not everyone involved has been willing to fill out, or it's always just been like, you know, I'll get to it, I haven't had time, etc. But it's really about instilling the importance of these safety tools, of these lines and veils, of the session zero, to get everyone on the same page, kind of like for like as Christina said, so that collaboration can begin, so we can start building this world together and know that it's a safe place where we're doing that.
Yeah. I was thinking about something D'Angelo said, just talking about how you got your start with GMing, and I've been GMing for a long time myself. And it's like, I think, just to divert the question away and talk about this briefly, I think it's very interesting because back in those years, we didn't have explicit like safety tools. You would come to a table and you would be there and it was the game that it was no matter what. But like if you were playing with people, there was this sense that you had, what is the opposite of explicit? Implicit safety tools. Like if you come to a table with your friends, there are certain expectations you all have about that game. And I think the nice thing is we've gone from that unspoken implicitness of creating table safety and working things out after they occurred, sort of a post-responsive approach to GMing, to a proactive response with GMing, where we are putting in place all these things beforehand, some of which may have been discussed at tables a long, long time ago, some of which may have been encountered, like, I think it's a positive change, and I do basically everything else everybody's been saying, so I don't have too much to add in that regard. I have a tendency to front load my campaigns with a lot of questions. I do, in addition to safety tools, I do what kind of player are you? Breaking down Bartle's taxonomy and doing those questions into a short form questionnaire that I can get an understanding of not only what people prefer at the table to be included and to not be included, but how they like to play. Like, do they prefer exploration? Do they really love combat? Could they not give a shit about role playing? Like, those expectations, in my mind, are as important as safety tools, because if you're not providing the game you want for your players, nobody's having a fun time, Like, safety tools are definitely a part of the equation, and there's a lot that goes into session zeros and campaign prep that we are thankfully now integrating on all fronts, which is great. The fact that we have this panel speaks to that.
And I think a lot of the safety tools is a great way for an online space to give us. So when you're in person, you would hope that there's always that common courtesy, the common sense that you as a person, as a player, as a human wouldn't go there, right? In an ideal world, that's just what happens. You're there for 2 to 4 hours. Of course, you're not gonna. You as a normal human being, you're just not gonna go there, right? Why would you do that in a My Little Pony game? That doesn't make any sense. But especially at convention gaming, which is what I do a lot. In online gaming one-shots, you don't have that human interaction, that looking someone in the eye, that you can't see the uncomfortable shifting. You can't see the looking away, like, is there any way I can get out of this? The shutting down, especially if you're in a server, people don't always have their cameras on. The safety tools are there so that way they can express that, hey, these are things I just don't want to see. Oh, sweet. I know that this has a lot of animals in it. I will make sure that I don't put dogs in it, because for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what your reason is, but you don't want any dogs, there are no dogs in it. That way it's not uncomfortable for you. Everyone has a good time. Like, it's just there to give you as a GM the tools necessary to explore the other avenues. To tell the story. I mean, I don't ever see any reason why anyone would have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's funny because looking back, I always wonder, like, why do a lot of people want to play with me? That's so weird. There's like other dungeon masters around. But then I started to realize it later on because, obviously I'm brown and everything. So when I would be into other people's sessions, there would be like, whether it be fantasy racism or straight out racism or like misogyny and all this sort of stuff, homophobia as well and everything. And I'm like, ooh, I don't really like that stuff. So when I was the dungeon master, I wouldn't have any of those sort of things. And then I started to realize that people actually wanted that sort of environment, that like they wanted that more inclusive, more open-minded, instead of the classic sort of what we can perceive as like old school fantasy where the girls are in like bikini male and like everyone's pale skinned and all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting thinking about like how things were back in the day. Yeah.
D'Angelo, you've just given me the perfect segue into the next question. So thank you for that, which is, what do you think makes a GM a safe person to play with? And Riley, I would love to actually start with you since you were last on the last question. So you get the first go ahead here.
Oh, okay. Well, shit.
Pressure!
For me personally, what makes a GM safe to play with, it kind of boils down to three things. Whether I know them or not deals a whole lot with how safe I'm going to feel at a table. And I just can't get around that necessarily with safety tools. Like if I know a person, I know what their lines are, I know what their strictures are, I know where they're willing to go and whatnot. And that for me is always paramount at a table. But for tables that I'm at for like a one shot or like a charity thing, you don't necessarily have that luxury of knowing who you're going to be with. And so I would say probably the next most important thing is how much effort the GM puts into it to make things feel safety. Like there are some folks who you will just sit down at a table with and you will see them and you will feel their vibe and their presence. You're like, yep, I'm locked in. I know this. I get what we're going to do. And there are some folks who, frankly, you just don't know. And that's just the way it is sometimes. And so by them going out and making sure, we're going to do it a session 0. We're going to talk lines and veils. We're going to talk about, or even if they don't use that terminology, if they're like, hey, what don't we want to include in this campaign? Or, hey, I'm going to take this one shot that we're doing one time with people you don't know, and we're going to do this. Is that okay with everybody? Even that just little thing of doing the check-in and having, frankly, just bare minimum responsibility for the table is a whole heck of a lot better than just shooting from the hip and going free form with it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. GM safety for me is either knowing the person or seeing enough of how they want to present themselves and the safety of their table that I want to know them and want to be at that table and feel safe. It's, you know it when you feel it and you know it when you see it a little bit for me in terms of that. I'll stop talking.
Any other thoughts?
Popcorn it, Riley.
Right. For me, it's always about feeling appreciated and like actually like they want me to be at the table, because there's been many times, being in the TTRPG community where I've been, tokened, where it's like, oh, we need a brown person for our stream. It's a little bit too white. So let's get this like brown dude, to come in here. But then when my mouth opens up to have my character do something, it's either shut down or like, overruled or what have you. And I'm like, what's the point of me even being here? Like, I don't feel like safe, or even though any of my boundaries aren't like crossed or whatever, the boundary of like respect essentially is like there, because like, especially when it goes to mic time and the influence or agency that other players have, if certain players have way more than others and the GM like is the one that's like, doing this sort of thing, then it's like, that's just not a safe, GM. And, unfortunately by proximity, anyone who they recommend or they're associated with, I'm like, ooh, that's like slightly a red flag for me. And yeah, I've always felt safest with like BIPOC Dungeon Masters, because they seem to know the same feeling and never, it just has a better sort of experience for me. Yeah.
Can I momentarily leapfrog off of something you said?
Go for it.
It is as much the other people at the table for me as it also is the GM. Like, and I think we all agree with that. Like, cultivating who gets to share in the space is as important as who facilitates it. And I think that's I would say that's number 3 for me. I don't know if I did a top 3 reasons the first time, but now put it on BuzzFeed.
It's 3.A.
It's a listicle.
I don't know if you two have anything. I do.
Go for it.
Okay. To kind of take it from a little perspective, I am mainly a GM for games. I don't generally play. But one thing I do notice when I run games online depends on the community. I've left some communities where I was running games strictly because those communities do not have safety tools, do not have moderators that moderate, they have players who are just terrible. Like, the biggest sign for me in terms of whether or not I'm okay with running, or even if considering playing a game in a server, like on a Discord server, is if it is clear from the get-go when you get there that they have strict rules on who is running games, how they can run games, like what kind of safety tools you have to use. If they have those moderation tools in place and they have a great moderator that's on top of it, like, that is a safe place, I know, for players and for GMs to run games. That's how I know that it's like, okay, well, this is a safe pool to play in. And from there, obviously, like, you're always going to run into somebody, but that is life. But the places I've curated, I've carefully curated my locations where I play. I haven't run into anybody because they're so very careful about making sure that the bad actors stay away.
Mm-hmm.
Like TTRPG.
Shout out to the channel.
Yep.
Shout out to the channel.
Samesies again, as everyone else has kind of said, but I think for me, what I think makes a safe GM is definitely someone who listens, right? Actually takes what you're telling them to heart and tries to adapt the game to that. Also, someone who's very inquisitive, like wants to prod you. What do you want for your character? What do you want to do? What do you want to see? Someone who's like genuinely enthusiastic about the choices that you're making, the things you want to do. And I mean, I feel like any good like TTRPG rulebook has that included somewhere. It's like, you need to be an enthusiastic GM, right? And I feel like sometimes there's this antagonistic vibe that some GMs take on. I'm not going to call out a specific type or anything, but I just did, so deal with it. Who see it as like they're the wall that the characters have to smash through to get there. It's like, you should be the ladder, not the wall, And then kind of more the same as what everyone else said.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Just respect. Because you can tell when your GM doesn't respect you. I've sat at tables where everyone got shown the monster except for me. It's like, it's those little things you can pick up on that, right?
The character name pronunciations, that they always get it wrong and never try to get it. It's
right. Like, yes. Oh my gosh. It's like these little tiny things that all add up. Then you leave the table going, I'm not going back to that space. I didn't feel very welcomed or wanted. And I think that comes back to what you said, D'Angelo.
Yeah, completely. If this is a good time, I'll move on to our next question, which I'm really excited about because I'm a huge spooky bitch. So this is regarding streams or games that you might be playing, like Curse of Strahd or Call of Cthulhu. How do you maintain player safety when playing games with those darker themes, or perhaps not darker themes, but putting characters into intense emotional situations? And anyone can jump in.
I say either Christina or Miguel.
Okay. I guess as I say in a lot of my work meetings, I'll go ahead and start talking so the awkward silence doesn't get too awkward. I think, what did I write down? Listening. Yeah. I think it's going to be my default answer for a lot of these. Is just a GM that listens and uses the tools they're given, right? You literally have safety tools that tell you what's green and what's red. You usually have a lot of green, right? So it's not hard to just stay in that lane, figure out what your players are wanting to include, right? And then just adapting from there. I think as a GM, I try to never set any of my themes, ideas, and things in stone, because I want to let them be flexible, malleable enough that once the player's needs come into play, I can just easily pivot in the direction that it needs to go to make it, a good table for everybody. And I feel like there's always plenty of material to draw from without having to get into like these really tropey, oh, they're bad because they're evil and they stab people through the butts. I don't know. I do goofy and whimsy. I don't know a lot of horror stuff.
I can jump in because I do love doing a lot of horror and I do a lot of darker themes. And I think the biggest thing is continuing to check in with people and asking questions all along the way. So in session 0, what do you want to have happen to your character? I want to know if you want to have something tragic happen. Do you have something tragic that did happen? I'm GMing a Haunted West game right now. And one of the biggest questions I asked in my session 0 was, what is your character afraid of? And what are they running from? Because the theme of the game is something is chasing you. You are trying to get away from them, or a theme or something. And they were all able to answer these questions, and it lets us get really heavy with it in a very big way that and then there's a lot of checking in that's going on between players, between me and the players in private conversations at the table. Like, is everyone okay with where this is going? We can take a break, we can stop. So just that open, continued communication. And I don't think I would be able to get as heavy or feel comfortable as a person, as a GM, as a friend going into, okay, let's have a conversation that is going to hurt your character without that conversation having happened where they said, yes, please, let's have this conversation.
Yeah, and that's like really the biggest thing is open communication. And when it comes to horror theme and darker theme games, a lot of it is very much buy-in. You have to be open, honest, and really be upfront about what this game is, what it's going to be about, where it might lead, where it's going to go, and go, is this going to be okay with you? Is this something you want to do and explore? And also the lines and veils, see what it is, and keep checking it. One of the most beautifully designed games I've ever seen, Bluebeard's Bride. It's a feminine horror game. Fantastic. The first time I played it, I was left a little shook at the end, and I had to sit down for like an hour thinking about what I just played. But it, like, some horrible things can happen in that game, but the buy-in into that is that these things can happen in the game outside of what the lines and veils are, but it's okay because I'm okay with it. And it's because the groundskeeper, the GM, talked with us with it ahead of time and then said, if this is okay with you, let's start. If not, it's okay. Go ahead and step away. There is an open door policy, which is a question later on, but that's a second thing. Another safety tool is an open door policy. Whenever you want to walk away, you walk away. But communication is so incredibly key with really heavy emotional stories. You can't just be like, okay, we did that the first session, never check back in again.
Yeah. And sort of going off of that, one of the lessons that I had to learn for myself as a GM, and I think it's a lesson a lot of folks not necessarily struggle with, but fall into the trap of, specifically with horror and specifically with games with darker themes and emotional situations. There's this tendency as a game master or facilitator to want to surprise, to want to hold something back and really hit your players with a punch and, sucker punch them in their feels or take them to a spot that is like, and it's going to be good. Like, the thing with this is, you plan the surprise, it's going to be great. You still have to check in with your players. Like, you still have to make sure that they're going to be okay with it. And there's this tendency for GMs to be like, oh no, like, this is my set piece. I'm setting it up. I want to make it a surprise. I want to have it be a thing. And it's like, you can still do that while providing for the safety, accountability, and responsibility of your table, while upholding the social contract, and while not potentially springing a damaging or harmful scenario or situation on folks who may be blindsided by it, who were taking a completely different tone from what you were doing, or had different expectations about what the session is going to be. And so just, yeah, active, reiterative consent and enthusiastic buy-in. I recently started jamming a game. And I was like, hey, how scary do we want this on a scale of 1 to 10? And literally every player was like, terrify us. We are a group of sadists. Go hard. And I was like, okay. And I have had to be more proactive in all of my safety tools at that table than I ever have had, even though I know every one of those people are there every week for everything I'm going to throw at them. But to maintain that, you got to keep the infrastructure in place.
Yeah, and back in the day, like I said before, when I got into GMing, there weren't any safety tools. There was not a expectation of like boundaries or anything like that. So I learned the hard way, like, because I love horror, Lovecraft, Junji Ito, like Guillermo del Toro, like all these different like masters of horror, and I was influenced by them. So I would come to sessions and be like, all right, I'm going to give you like an unforgettable experience. And sure enough, I would unleash this onto the table, and people would have breakdowns. They would freak out. They would have to stop, and all that kind of stuff. And through that experience, I was like, oh my God, like you guys are my friends. I don't want you to legitimately, have a breakdown because of this game. Like this is not okay to feel at all. So now what I do is I handle it like my kid, where I'm like, all right, here's what's going to come down the pipeline. This is like, what's the aspects that are going to come up and everything like that. Do you feel like you're okay with this? Do you have any questions? I can answer. There's, if you say that you don't want this or X, Y, and Z, you will never ever in a million years offend me. My purpose here is to make you happy and like entertain you and make you like uncomfortable but within like the game, and all everything. And usually everyone's like, no, I'm cool, but usually it comes from a place of like, I don't want to rock the boat. So then I like dial the horror up to like 4, and then afterwards I check in again, and I'm like, is everyone still cool? Does anyone have any questions? Are everyone good? And they're like, yeah. And usually it does spark some like, well, and then I'm able to get that information to be like, all right, cool, well, I'm gonna alter it. And then I check in like one last time, make sure everyone's good, and then I crank it all the way to 11, to whatever I can do with the best of my ability to show them like what it's going to be like. And then I check in again to be like, that was the full meal deal. Are you cool with it? Now, let me know. You can, and that way they understand what they're dealing with and can be like, okay, I'm cool with this, because if this is going to be the entire campaign, then here's some boundaries, and then be able to work, off of that. That way, everyone, like, there's never a situation where anyone gets like shocked or surprised by like, I had no idea, this was going to come down the pipeline. Because like, yeah, I always want everyone to have a good time, and even me myself, who loves horror, like there's certain things that I never want to, see or experience, and I hope that my players never have to have that uncomfortable experience at my own table, without at least exhausting all of my resources to prevent that. So yeah.
Completely. Having boundaries and maintaining them is critical when you're exploring those darker themed games. And when we're doing the work that we do and playing the games that we play, sometimes there are issues that pop up. And the next question goes into that, which is, what are ways that you can repair relationships at the table when a boundary is crossed or someone learns about a new boundary that they didn't know existed? And Christina, I would love to hear your thoughts on this first.
I think this is a really difficult thing. And it's something that I think I would struggle with as someone who struggles with communication in general, but it is communication. And it is also stepping back from the situation and not taking things personally. It's really, really easy when you have crafted a story, built things that you feel really passionate about as a storyteller, or as a table together. You've built a world, you've built relationships and characters, maybe you've really connected with NPCs or places, to feel as if someone saying no is a personal attack, and it is not. Someone saying no is a boundary, and it's a good thing, and you should have boundaries. So not taking it personally, stepping back, and realizing that you are speaking to a friend, right? This is a friend who needs to set a boundary, and that's all it is. So, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Just building off of that, I have had 3 experiences this year where a table has gotten kind of touchy with things. And one of them was partially my fault. Another of them, I would say, is equal measure player GM, where I was the GM. And the other one was where I, as a player, had a problem with something a GM was doing. And in every single instance, the best and hardest thing to do is direct communication. Just be like, hey, this didn't work well with me. And meeting that person, however they are approaching, with, like Christina said, the full acknowledgement that we are friends. And if we're not friends, we're ostensibly here to have a good time together at a table. And we want that to continue. So we should work to meet like the safety of all involved. Like, it's hard. We're all geeky. We're all nerdy. A lot of us are neurodivergent. A lot of us don't like direct confrontation because of various reasons in our past. But God damn it, is direct communication like sometimes the best tool you have? Just being like, hey, I've got a problem. And it can be in the moment. I know it's very difficult in the moment to bring those up. It can be right after a session, or it can be much later on. All three of those things happened in all three of those instances for me. I've been around the gamut. Like, it's, you just got to be willing to communicate. And like Miguel said earlier, a lot of what these all come down to is active listening, a want to be active and listen to everyone at the table, not just as GM and player, but like as folks dedicated to the social contract of the game that you're holding.
And you know, coming from a GM perspective on that, don't ever be afraid, no matter whether it's in game, at a convention where you're pressed for time, or even on stream. As an example, for me, there was a boundary in my Nahual game that was just very close to being broken, and someone made a mention of it on stream, and I stopped the game. There was about 30 seconds of dead air because I was typing something out to my players in the Zoom about what it was I was doing, and to just clarify something. Those boundaries are important, and they wrote them out for a reason. And you know, I understood where that person was coming from, and I didn't want to have any kind of confusion about it. And so I cared more about that player than about anyone in chat going, "What the hell's going on?" Because that's what's important. So yeah, I mean, this is like the boundaries are, yeah, it's just a lot of communication. Everyone, I think that's just like what the parentheses like it should be for this thing is like, just talk to each other. Direct communication. Please, for the love of God, talk to each other.
Yeah, agreed. It's the best thing you can do. I'm fortunate that I really haven't run into this type of situation much, if at all. But I think it's just about, and this just falls back on what everyone else says, but acknowledgement of what has happened, and then acknowledging that it's something that needs to change. There needs to be some sort of accountability and change of behavior. You know, whether maybe it was a slip up, it was a one-time, sure, but yeah, I think it's just kind of coming together as a table, either in the moment or like waiting, like other people said, and just say, you know, having an honest conversation about what happened, why it was I don't want to say issue, but why it's a problem. Like you can't just, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a cop and say you just can't break the rules, right? Like that's not what it's about. It's just building on like a lot of the themes that we've talked about. It's about communication, it's listening, it's about respect. Like you need to sit at this table in a place of both mutual understanding and mutual respect, like understanding of what the themes are, what the lines are, the veils. And like if we just say, okay, there they are, and you know, throw them out the door the minute the game starts, and there's no point in doing any of it, and then you're definitely going to run into these kind of situations. So it's just holding true to the expectations you set for yourself at the beginning of the game, hopefully during your session 0, and then when that doesn't happen, acknowledging it. I guess I'm rambling.
No, it was good. I liked it. For me, like this is a really near and dear topic to my heart. You know, the part of how do you repair relationships that's been damaged by one aspect or another, especially during TTRPG productions? And I take this very seriously because it is in my belief that TTRPG productions are not homebrew games. You're not with your friends, you're performing for an audience, and trying to, bring your A game sort of thing. And usually you're on channels that have like a producer team and all that kind of stuff. And your dungeon master or game master has that position of power where they run things, sort of thing. And it sucked because I've been through an experience where the vibe was like, or what was said was, we are very inclusive, we are a family, we are a team, we're all for you. If anyone feels uncomfortable, speak up and we'll be able to help you out. But then what happens is that during an actual production, I was like, hey, I feel uncomfortable and here are the reasons why. And instead of the clear communication of being like, I understand these concerns and all that kind of stuff, here's how we can address that sort of thing, it was simply like, yeah, that's totally cool, there's no issue at all. When really that festered and boiled, and DMs were like talked, and all this sort of stuff like spewed like in a high school sort of way, when really it would have been better just to been like, hey, I understand this is what you like don't like or like, but this is what we're doing here, so if you don't like this, it might be good for you to like consider going somewhere else, or maybe we can work on these sort of things. But because it was simply like a very easy cop out where it was like, yeah, that's fine, and then it wasn't really fine, it led to burn bridges and like high tension and emotions and all these sort of things, which was very traumatic, honestly. Literally went to therapy, to go over these sort of things. So it's a very big situation where, like everyone said, direct communication. It's better to have that uncomfortable conversation and to embrace conflict with the ultimate goal of having an amicable, reasonable, resolution, rather than just saying like, I don't want to go through this uncomfortability, so therefore I'm going to go ahead and just like, deal with it later, and then slowly push them out, slowly kick them out, and then like do all these sort of things. And it sucks because, especially if the producer team can see all of what's going on and not get involved when they're supposed to be the head honchos, that also, it's a breakdown of all the infrastructure, and there really is no safety or concern or anything like that. So it's really near and dear. So direct communication is always the way to go. So even in a situation where if that happens and you feel slighted and you feel concerned and you're like not appreciated, not respected, it's always better to be like, hey, I don't feel respected. And if this doesn't get alleviated, I'm going to walk away. Here are my, intentions. Do you want to work this out, or should we, X, Y, and Z? Like, it's way better for yourself. And, and that way, if they legitimately care about you, they'll actually take the time and effort to be able to help repair those, mend those fences. So, yeah.
Completely. With this community too, I find that so frequently the words family are used, or like, even like, community itself is like so strange, when in reality we're not a family. A lot of us are streaming, doing business together. It's totally a different animal, different beast, especially when it comes to personal and interpersonal relationships. So next question we have here, I'm going to start with you, D'Angelo, for this one. And it's about decompressing after sessions. So I'm wondering what protocols you might have in place for after a session, what you might do with folks. Something like Stars and Wishes is a great example, or other things like that.
I'm actually unfamiliar with Stars and Wishes. What's that?
Oh, okay, great. That's something I use on my show, which is after a session, folks choose a star and a wish, and you go as a round robin around the table. So a star is something that you loved about the episode, something that you might want to see more of next time, or like a highlight, like you're the MVP of this episode because of this moment. Whereas the wish is something that you hope will happen the next time, or it's an opportunity to bring up space for having those tougher conversations, like this sort of boundary might have been crossed.
That makes sense. Yeah, I use one called Peaks and Pits, which is essentially the same thing. Like, what was the thing you enjoyed most, and what's the thing that you didn't really like, which has been like wonderful. Because in the peaks we all celebrate our victories and we're like, yeah, that scene was so awesome. And in the pits I really appreciate it, because I always tell everyone that like, this is a safe place. You will not be judged. You will not be kicked out if you didn't like something X, Y, and Z. So please communicate what you didn't like. And that's had like an awesome experience, because people have been like, hey, during this scene, you raised your voice at me and like yelled at me, and I didn't appreciate that. Could you please like warn me next time you do that if you want to like get emotional or whatever?" And then the player is like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm so sorry about that. I didn't realize I took it to that level." And I was like, "All right, cool. We got that resolved. It's not going to be an issue that festers. You know, it's nipped it in the bud, and we're all growing as a cast." And yeah, so Peaks and Pits or Stars and Wishes is a great thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have really interesting, actually, I'm going to jump in here and say, Riley, you have to go next. We have our little Zoom chat and things are popping off in there. So please tell us about it.
Well, since something put a spotlight on.
Yeah, Riley, tell us about it.
So yes, I also do Stars and Wishes, also known as Peaks and Pits. It's that idea that you give a kudo to somebody at the table and then just talk about a change. It can be a positive change. It can be a negative change. Like, hey, this really affected me, or I'm really looking forward to getting to do this, like having both of those. And another thing I also do at the end of my session specifically is Stars, Wishes, and Reflections, where in addition to giving everybody else a kudo and wishing for a change, you give yourself a positive kudo, because as a bunch of queer, neurodivergent, marginalized folk living in the world, we need to be nicer to ourselves. And so, like, talking yourself up and acknowledging the good things you did is always nice. And it is literally the hardest thing for everybody to do at every single table I've ever run these at. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, kudos to this person, this person, this person, and I'd like this change." And then I'm like, "What about your reflection?" And they're like, "I was hoping you wouldn't ask about that because I'm really bad at giving myself compliments." And then I say, "You're as deserving of compliments as everyone else. I will force you to be nice to yourself. How dare you not be kind to my friend?" And then we fight if they continue to refuse. That last part is a joke.
Riley, I'll meet you on the field of battle. No, I'm ready. Another something I like to do if I'm playing a game that has mechanics that I forget, I'm specifically thinking about inspiration in D&D. I forget it all the time, but I also really like it, and I like players to have it. So I have them give each other inspiration at the end of the session. So everyone starts the session with an inspiration, and they've kind of done the Stars and Wishes, and then we'll follow up with wishes as well. But there's ways you can kind of use mechanics to make this worth it. If you have players that are like, "Well, I just don't want to talk about what went on. I just want to go about my day," or like, "But you get a cookie."
Smart.
Yeah.
Go, Miguel.
I also use Stars and Wishes, but it's not any different than anyone else here has used. But I definitely use my wishes as like, not my, I don't have a genie. I don't want anyone to get ideas. I listen to my players' wishes, and it's honestly something I've only started doing since I started streaming with Ttrpg, because I was unaware of it before. So kudos to the channel again. Really try to use that as like a guiding light for where my next session or the session after go, etc. And then I try to maybe follow up if I can between sessions with players just in our Discord or something. Say, "Hey, what does everyone feel about this?" Or kind of just put out feelers, and ask, "Whoa, that was an intense ending. What does it look like y'all are going to do next time?" And kind of get a sense of intent, and then again let that be what guides where things are going. I think that's like what everyone does.
Yeah, I for the most part it's just Stars and Wishes for me. Just about a year ago is when I started using that, because most of mine have just been convention games, so don't get a lot of time right after that. But I like it a lot because it gives me a chance to catch up with the people I've been running games with on stream, especially since I don't know a lot of people on stream, so I'm starting to get to know a lot more people. So a lot of it is more just a bullshit session afterwards. We do the Stars and Wishes, and then I end up talking to people for about 15-20 minutes afterwards, so it's really nice. I don't get a lot, it's still March of 2020 and 2022. And so it's nice to be
Yeah.
able to converse with people. I think a lot of that is my decompression. Is I think a lot of people also have that. So, so yes, I do it for a selfish reason. Personally, actually, my secret is out.
Well, as we close out the panel, I would love everyone to please once again tell everybody where you can be found, and also let us know what your favorite safety tool is. It could be something you already mentioned, or maybe you have one that you forgot to say. So what you love to use and why. And we're going to start with D'Angelo.
Hey everyone. My name is D'Angelo Murillo. You can find me on social medias at _D'Angelo. And then yeah, for mine it's X's and O's. I love that. It's very simple, easy to understand, and people who haven't like ever used safety tools before are not used to it. It's easy for them to buy in to the concept. And yeah.
Next is Miguel.
Hi, everybody. I have been Miguel. Pronouns are he, they. I am your TTRPG bestie. I'm a GM, streamer, dreamer, player, a green, a bean, a tomato, a potato, writer, editor, also currently working on Order Up, a game where you make food in a world of magic and whimsy. You can find my shenanigans on Twitter at Miguel? Who is that? Miguel _Clásico. My favorite safety tool is definitely the digital RPG consent checklist, just because it's thorough. It includes a movie rating, and I feel like that just gives you a great vibe check from the jump. And you can find various versions of them online and easy to just copy into your own Google Drive, and then boom, there you go. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Riley.
Hi, I'm Riley. I was. And my favorite safety tool, I think, that we haven't discussed is probably red, yellow, green lights. Very similar to X's and O's, where X is hard stop, please no. O is enthusiastic consent. It's red light, so like we need to stop, we need to cool the brakes, we need to take a second here. Yellow light, which is either I'm enthusiastic about this and want to keep going, or I'm good at not enthusiastic, sorry, slowing down. So it's stop, slowing down, and then green is enthusiastic consent. So just using the red-green light system has been very nice for me too. And I'm going to throw it over to Christine.
Hey everyone, I'm Christina. You can find me on Twitter at D20Xtina. And I think my favorite safety tool we also didn't talk about, but it's the open table system. I think it just opens that communication of respect in a way that's really easy for people to understand. I use it a lot in online games that I jam for people I don't know, just so they know that I respect them. I'll say, you know, if you need to go get a drink, go use the bathroom. We're all adults here. And you'll see the light bulb kind of go like, oh, I don't have to just sit here and take it, you know? So I love that one. It's when I use in all of my games. I think it's great. Check it out. And I have to plug the project that I'm working on right now because there's only 3 hours to go in our Kickstarter campaign.
Woo!
Go check out the Rumor Broker's Ledger of Names, which is an NPC compendium, diverse NPCs, and I wrote and Knife Abuela, and you can find her and many others over at Kickstarter.
Well, all the safety tools that have been mentioned are fantastic and great. I would like to point out it's necessarily a safety tool, but it is a safety tool to keep yourself safe in terms of it. It is actually tied to Monster Hearts game. It's a document called Safe Hearts. It is the 3 circles of responsibility. And those 3 circles are keep responsibility to yourself, to the others at the table, and to the character you are portraying. And it essentially is checking in with those and being respectful and responsible as you are playing before, during, and after the game. If you want to find that document, it's out there for free, and it's a fantastic read. The game is also great. I'm More Shoddy. You can find me at Twitter, on Twitter at more_shoddy, or you can go to my website at moreshoddyplays.games.
Awesome. For me, I think I'm taking away Riley's addition to Stars and Wishes, the reflections. I love that. For me, especially as a baby DM, I've only been doing it for about 3 years now, and I'm very, very hard on myself. So including that for me and for everybody else at my table is really, really awesome. So I love that. Yeah, I'm Charlene Bear, pronoun she, they, and I'm at Charlene Bear on all the social medias. But thank you, everyone on this panel, everyone that's watching today, either live on Twitch or on the YouTube archive. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to support the Faire, for celebrating Nikki's birthday. Happy birthday, Nikki! And for raising funds for GLSEN. As discussed in today's panel, it is critical for folks to always feel safe and welcome, no matter who they are. And if you learned something by watching this panel today, I encourage you to click the link in chat and donate to an amazing organization whose mission is to ensure that LGBTQ students are able to learn and grow in a school environment free from bullying and harassment. I hope you have an excellent rest of the fair, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.